You are standing on the platform at Nerima Station at 6:47 in the morning, and the uniform doesn't fit. Not dramatically, not in a way anyone would point at. The skirt is 2 centimeters too long, and the ribbon at your collar is tied in a simple knot instead of the left-over right fold that every other girl on this platform wears without thinking about it. The same way they breathe, the same way they exist inside a set of rules. So internalized they stopped being rules years ago and became just the shape of things. You don't know about the ribbon yet. You will know about it by the end of the day, and the knowing will arrive quietly, the way most damage does. The train comes. You step on. The car smells of heat and hair product and the particular metallic stillness of a space that many people occupy without acknowledging each other. You find a grip on the overhead rail and the seats in your row empty, not in a rush, not with hostility, just in that gradual, unhurried way that is somehow colder than hostility because it requires no decision from anyone. Nobody chose to exclude you. The geometry simply reasserted itself. You are a variable that doesn't resolve cleanly, and the equation corrected. Outside the windows, the Seibu Ikebukuro line carries you through Nerima Ward in the early gray light. Vending machines, bicycle racks ranked in precise rows. School gates painted the same institutional cream you've seen outside schools in 3 countries now, as if whoever designed schools internationally agreed on one color to mean, this is where you learn what you are. You rehearse the sentences in your head. Hajime menshite. Watashi wa Miyazawa desu. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. The pronunciation is your mother's, or what remains of it after years of fragments, Sunday mornings, words she let slip and then seemed to regret. You've been practicing for 3 weeks, your mouth knows the shapes. What you can't practice is the accent, the particular music of it, the way a language carries its history in the back of the throat and the native speaker never hears it because they've always been inside it. You are half Japanese and half something else, which in most places makes you interesting, and in this place makes you wrong. Not wrong the way a mistake is wrong. Wrong the way a word looks when you've stared at it too long, and it stops resembling itself. Your face lands in the space between categories, and the space between categories has no social address. You moved to Japan 8 weeks ago. Your mother went back to Osaka without you. And the silence around that fact is the same silence she always used for the things that mattered most. Your grandparents in Nerima receive you with the formal warmth of people who are doing their duty and are not entirely sure what the duty requires. Your grandfather looks at you and sees something he doesn't discuss. Your grandmother folds your laundry with great care and calls you by your family name. This is your 3rd school in 4 years. You are very good at reading rooms and very bad at staying in them. Inside your school planner, on page 47, the week you arrived, there is a photograph. Your mother, young in this city, wearing a school uniform with the ribbon tied correctly. She is smiling in the way people smile when someone has asked them to smile. Her hair is short, her posture is exact. She looks like a girl who has learned to take up precisely the amount of space she's been allocated and not 1 centimeter more. You have been looking at this photograph for 8 weeks trying to understand it. You think it's showing you who she was. You don't yet know it's showing you who she became. Homeroom is at 8:15. The teacher, Tanaka-sensei, is a woman in her mid-40s with reading glasses pushed up on her forehead, and the patient, slightly exhausted manner of someone who has introduced new students to skeptical classrooms many times before and has made a private peace with the limitations of the process. She says your name. She uses the word gaikokujin, foreigner. It is technically accurate. It lands in the room like a drop tray, and everyone pretends not to hear the clatter. You stand. You deliver the self-introduction you have been rehearsing for 3 weeks, and the grammar is correct. Every particle in its right place, every verb form appropriate to the register. What fails is the second syllable of yoroshiku, where your accent surfaces like something you tried to hold underwater and couldn't. It's 1 syllable. 1 small betrayal of origin. From the back row, someone exhales. Not a laugh. A breath, the involuntary sound of a small recognition. You file it, you finish the sentence. You bow at the correct angle. Your desk is by the window, 3rd row. The girl beside you is Sato Hena. She has the contained precision of someone who learned early that the most powerful thing you can be in a room is the person who is never surprised. She gives you 1 look when you sit down. A full, unhurried assessment that takes in the ribbon, the skirt length, the specific brand of shoes that marks you as someone who didn't know what shoes to buy. Then she turns back to her textbook. You will spend the next 4 months trying to decode that look. It is not cruel. That is the problem with it. If it were cruel, you would know what it meant. You decide in the first 10 minutes of homeroom, without deciding it in any way you could name aloud, that you'll become whoever this school needs you to be. You open your notebook. You watch the girl in front of you hold her pen, the slight angle of her wrist, the pressure she uses. You replicate it exactly. Lunch is 35 minutes. 35 minutes that reconfigure daily into the same map, the same clusters at the same desks, a social architecture so settled it has become invisible to the people inside it. They don't think of themselves as arranged. They are simply where they always are. On your third day, you bring a convenience store onigiri in its plastic triangle wrapper and you eat it at your desk facing the window, while behind you, the room organizes itself around absences you haven't yet learned to read. The onigiri is tuna and mayonnaise. It costs 138 yen. You will remember this detail for reasons you don't understand yet. Hana's group occupies the cluster of 4 desks, 2 rows back. Hana herself, precise and watchful. Moriyuki, who performs loudness like it's a gift she's giving the room. Idarina, the quiet one, the one who holds the group's center of gravity without ever seeming to try. And sometimes drifting between tables with the ease of someone who has learned that belonging nowhere is its own kind of freedom. A boy named Nakamura Soda. You study them the way you study everything in a new place, systematically, with the focused attention of someone whose survival has historically depended on reading the room correctly. By week 2, you know the group is complete. You also know it's the one you want, not because they are the most popular, not in any dramatic social hierarchy sense, but because they are stable in a way that feels like something you could lean against. Stability is what you have been looking for across 3 schools and 2 countries and 8 weeks of formal kindness from grandparents who don't know how to hold you. You are looking for a crack in the wall. You find it by accident. During the 10-minute break between 3rd and 4th period, you overhear Hana mention a cafe near Koenji Station. She says the name the way you say the name of a place you belong to, without emphasis, as if it needs no introduction. Something else. Named after the Cannonball Adderley record, 1958, Blue Note, a Sunday morning sound, the sound of your mother in the kitchen before she stopped making sounds in the kitchen. You know this cafe by name because your mother mentioned it once, obliquely, the way she mentioned everything about Japan, as if the words were on loan and she might have to return them. You have never been there. But the name is real, and the geography is real, and that is enough. The next morning, during the break, you mention it. Casually, with the exact texture of casual you have been practicing. My mother used to take me there. Hana's eyes move from her phone to your face in a way that is different from the assessment on day 1. Something shifts behind them. Not warmth. Interest. Which in this context is better than warmth, because warmth is personal and interest is a door. It is a lie. Or rather, it is something made from a real material shaped into a thing that didn't happen. Your mother's Japan, the fragments she handed you over years of partial disclosure, the music and the food and the words she used when she forgot she wasn't supposed to. That Japan is your only currency here. You have just spent the first bill. 3 Saturdays pass before the invitation comes. 1 sentence from Hana, delivered with the efficiency of someone who has considered the matter and reached a conclusion. You should come on Saturday. You spend 2 days preparing, and the preparation has nothing to do with what to wear. You research something else, its history, its regulars, the specific recordings the owner plays on heavy rotation. You map the conversational patterns of Hana's group from 3 weeks of observation. Who defers to whom? Which subjects close, like a door? Which ones open? You practice the entry points. You study the silences. The cafe is a narrow room in the Koenji Shotengai, down a half flight of stairs with low lighting and vinyl sleeves arranged on the walls and columns, and the owner, a man in his 60s with the patience of someone who has been listening carefully to music his entire adult life. The Adderley record plays when you arrive, you do not react to it. Reacting would mean explaining, and explaining would mean you come from somewhere, and right now you are trying to be from here. The afternoon is a success, which is to say you perform well enough that they invite you again. Then again. By the fourth Saturday, you are a fixture at the table. By the sixth, Hana is holding your desk at lunch with her bag the way she holds desks for people who belong there. You have done it. You tell yourself you have done it. What you don't see, what you won't see for a long time, is the cost already being tallied. It starts with the name. You stop using your Western name at school. Not because anyone asked you to, but because the introduction is easier without it. The social processing faster, the hesitation in people's faces shorter. Miyazawa. Clean, classifiable, requiring no footnote. The Western name was the part of you that came from somewhere else, and somewhere else is complicated, and you are trying to be simple. Then, it is the shoes. The specific Asics model that Hannah's group wears, low profile, in navy, not the brand you came with. Then the bag, one shoulder instead of two. Then the filler word nanka, which native speakers insert between thoughts the way they breathe unconsciously, and which in your mouth requires conscious placement, deliberate insertion, until one morning on the train you realize you've been using it without thinking, and you don't know whether to feel relieved or frightened, so you choose neither. Then the internal monologue. You've been thinking in English your whole life, the running private commentary of your own mind, the place where you were most completely yourself because no one else could hear it. You start thinking in Japanese. Not because anyone told you to. Because you are that good at this, and because being good at this feels like winning. And winning feels like what you came here for. What you don't register because you are so far inside the performance is that the internal monologue has gone quiet, not translated. Quiet. The specific private voice that narrated your life, that argued with itself and doubled back and asked the questions you didn't have answers to, that voice is using fewer and fewer words. You tell yourself it's focus. You are not focused. You are being erased very slowly by your own hands, and you are mistaking the erasure for progress. Fernanda arrives in the 5th week of your 2nd month. She stands at the front of the class in a uniform with the skirt 2 centimeters too long and the ribbon in a simple knot. And she delivers her self-introduction with the 2nd syllable of Yoroshiku landing wrong. And you know every beat of what is happening to her from the inside because you were her 14 weeks ago. She is Brazilian Japanese, 2nd generation, with a name that fills the mouth of a Japanese classroom the wrong way. And when she finishes her bow and scans the room, she finds your face. You are the face that should answer. You look away. For 2 weeks, she attempts proximity. A borrowed eraser, a question about the homework, the small, low-cost offerings of someone trying to find a way in. Each time you respond with the minimal courtesy that closes a door without slamming it. This is a skill you have learned from observation. You have learned it perfectly. One afternoon, Hana watches you do it and says quietly, "Umai yo ne." You're good at this, aren't you? She means it as a compliment. You accept it as one. The cold stone lands in your chest and you don't examine it. The school trip to Kyoto is in late October, 2 nights in Higashiyama, and you are assigned to the Ryukan room with Hana and Yuki and Rina because Hana arranged it, which means you have been formally categorized. You are group. You walk through Kinkaku-ji at 8 in the morning before the crowds. The golden pavilion reflected in water so still it looks like the real thing is the reflection, and the building floating above it is the copy. The November light sits low and gold. Yuki is taking photographs. Rina has her hands in her coat pockets and her eyes partly closed like someone receiving something she doesn't want to interrupt. Hana stands beside you, and for a few seconds, you are just 2 people looking at the same thing and not performing anything. And it is the most real moment you have had in 4 months, and you let it pass without naming it. That night in the ryokan, after the lights are supposed to be out, you talk in the dark for nearly 2 hours. The room smells of tatami and cedar and the residual warmth of the bath down the hall. Yuki tells the story of her first crush, performed loudness dropping into something gentler, and Rina describes failing her cram school entrance exam in the 3 months she didn't tell her parents. And then there is the particular silence that comes after someone has said a true thing, and the room is deciding how to hold it. Hana says, "I sometimes think I don't know who I am when I'm not with you 3. Like if I were somewhere none of you had ever been, I wouldn't know how to be. I've never found out." The room is very quiet. Outside, rain has started on the roof tiles of Higashiyama in a sound like static. You should say, "I know that. I've been living that for 4 months. I've been living it for years." What you say is, "I don't think you have anything to worry about." because you have trained the reflex so thoroughly that the true answer no longer fires first. The trained answer fires first, the one calibrated to what the room needs, the one that closes the subject gently and confirms the speaker rather than meeting them. You feel the true answer underneath it like a hand pressed flat against a closed door, and you leave it there. Hana says, and rolls onto her side, and the conversation ends. The school newsletter runs a photograph from the trip. Your class in front of Fushimi Inari, late afternoon light, the torii gates receding orange-red into the hillside behind you. You are in the photograph without asterisk or footnote. Third from the left, one of them. You stare at it for a long time, and there is something in your chest that should be satisfaction and keeps not arriving. The letter comes in November. Your grandmother hands it to you in the entryway of her house on a Tuesday evening when you get back from school, your bag still on your shoulder, your shoes still on. She holds the envelope the way you hold something you are not sure is safe. Your mother's handwriting on the outside. You recognize it the way you recognize music from another room. You stand in the entryway and read all 3 pages without moving. Your mother left Japan at 22. This is the fact you knew. What you did not know was why. And the why has been the silence at the center of everything. The silence that was never explained, only felt. The silence your grandparents observe, and your mother never broke, and you have been circling for 8 weeks without knowing you were circling it. She left because she was disappearing. Not through cruelty, the letter says, and she is careful about this, writes it more than once as if she's afraid you'll misread her. Not through cruelty. Through precision. Through the same slow, patient, nearly invisible process by which a person can fit so completely into a space that they no longer remember having a shape of their own. She spent 3 years performing Belonging so well that one morning she looked in the mirror and could not find the girl who had wanted things, who had been annoyed by things, who had a specific private reaction to music and food and the quality of light that was hers and nobody else's. She left because if she stayed another year, there would be nothing left to evacuate. She didn't teach you Japanese because she didn't want to give you the tools to do what she did. The 3rd page is shorter than the other 2. Halfway through, the sentences change character, become less organized, as if she ran out of the kind of courage that produces clear sentences and finished the letter on a different kind. She writes, Watashi ga, watashi janai ki ga shita. I had the feeling I wasn't myself anymore. She writes it in Japanese in the middle of the Japanese she almost never used with you, and you understand it completely, every word and particle, because you are 6 months into building the same machinery. You've been feeling it for weeks. You haven't had the vocabulary for it until now. You still have your school bag on your shoulder. You have not moved. The Genkin light is on its timer and clicks off while you're standing there, and you stand in the dark for a moment before you think to reach for the switch. You go to school the next day, you sit with Hana, you eat lunch, you use the word nanka in the correct places, you laugh at the right moment in Yuki's story. The performance runs flawlessly, and there is no one to see that you are running it from a great cold distance now. That something has relocated inside you, that you are present in the room the way a photograph is present in a room. After school, Fernanda is on the steps outside the gym. She is eating a convenience store onigiri, tuna, and mayonnaise, same brand as the one you ate in week 3, plastic triangle still half on, and she has the stillness of someone in the moment before something that isn't going to be stopped. Her eyes are dry. The rest of her face is doing the work that eyes usually do. You walk past her. Your shoes on the concrete, the cold November air with its particular smell of school and exhaust, and the first suggestion of winter. You take 6 steps past her and stop. You stand there. The rational part of your brain, the part you have been cultivating for 6 months, the part that knows the social geometry and has learned its maintenance requirements, that part tells you to keep walking. What it would cost you, what it would not undo. All the correct information. You turn around, you walk back, you sit down beside her on the concrete step, which is cold through your skirt. She looks at you the way someone looks when they have been assessed by too many people and found insufficient and have started to expect it as the standard weather condition of their life. You don't have a speech prepared. You don't have a calibrated entry point. What comes out is the first unperformed sentence you have spoken at this school in approximately 2 months. The ribbon goes left over right. I didn't know that for a whole month. She stares at you. Then she laughs. It's short and involuntary and real. The laugh of someone who wasn't expecting to laugh and is slightly annoyed that they did. You laugh too. The sound of it surprises you. It comes from somewhere that hasn't been accessed in a while. Something below the performance, something that sounds like you sounded before you became so careful about the sounds you make. Hana is behind you. 20 meters away, coming out the side door, bag on one shoulder, and she sees you on the steps with Fernanda. You don't see Hana yet. You will register her in a moment, and when you do, her expression will be the same as it was on your first day. Unhurried. Assessing. Nothing she is required to say about it. The next morning, Hannah's bag is on the seat beside her when you arrive at the cluster of 4 desks. She moves it when you approach, but there is a beat before she moves it. A beat that has no social script to hide behind. Just a beat, just long enough to mean what it means. You sit in your old seat by the window. You eat your lunch looking at the schoolyard, and you think about your mother's letter and the 3rd page that got shorter and the Japanese sentence she finally wrote you in the language she almost never used. You think about the photograph on page 47 and the girl in it who looks like she's trying very hard. You think about the 6 months you've spent and what they've cost, and whether the thing you've built out of that cost is a home or a replica of one. The cultural festival, the Bunkasai, comes in the last week of November. Every class prepares a presentation. Hana's group is running a jazz cafe. The irony arrives in your chest like a stone dropped into still water. The jazz cafe is what opened the door in October. The name you used as a key, something else, Cannonball Adderley, your mother's Sunday mornings. Now it's the backdrop for the act's final scene, which you don't know yet is the final scene. During setup, Nakamura Soda asks if you'll write the English signage for the display board. He asks with the directness of someone who belongs nowhere in particular and is therefore free from the social calculations that govern everyone else. You take the marker. You write in your own hand. The letters are slightly uneven, not from carelessness, but from the specific character of your particular hand. The hand you've had your entire life, the one that has been holding borrowed pens in borrowed postures for 6 months. Hana reviews the board. She pauses on the lettering. She asks if you want to redo it more neatly. It's a reasonable question. It is also, and you feel this clearly now, a test that you have taken 100 variations of since September. And you know what the passing answer is, and you know what happens if you give the other one. You say, "This is fine." Quietly. Without drama. Without anything in your voice that announces it as a decision, though it is the clearest decision you've made since you arrived on this platform at Nerima Station in the wrong length skirt. Hana looks at you. The 3 seconds that follow have no social script. The silence where the system can't tell you what to do because no rule covers this exact configuration. The foreigner who has been performing compliance for 6 months and has just calmly declined. Soda says, "I like it," and hangs it up. The festival runs for 2 days and the signage stays on the board and nothing collapses and nobody is cruel and the world does not end because you took up slightly more space than you were allocated. You file this information. During cleanup, you are stacking chairs when you hear the particular sound of a small object hitting the floor. You look down. The photograph has fallen from your planner, released from page 47, face up on the linoleum between 2 desks. Your mother in this city, young, trying hard. Hana picks it up before you can reach it. She looks at it. She looks at you. She says, "Is this your mother?" You say yes. She says, "She looks like she's trying very hard." She hands it back. You stand there holding the photograph and you cannot tell, you genuinely cannot tell whether that sentence is observation or judgment or something else entirely. And this is the thing you have been carrying without knowing it all these months. You have spent 6 months with Hana, studied her more closely than you've studied anything, calibrated yourself to her frequencies, and she is still opaque to you. Not because she is unknowable, because you have been so focused on reflecting her that you never actually looked. The mirror doesn't see what it reflects. It just sends it back. That evening at 8:12, sitting on the edge of the bed in your grandparents' house, you call your mother. She answers on the second ring. You don't tell her about the photograph or the signage or Hana's sentence or any of it. You ask her one question. The one you should have asked 8 weeks ago. The one you couldn't ask because you didn't have the vocabulary, and now you do. Did you ever actually fit in here? even once. She is quiet for long enough that you can hear the shape of the silence, the way silence has a temperature and hers is warm rather than cold. Then she says, once. At the end, right before I left. I fit in perfectly. That's why I had to go. You sit with that sentence for a long time. The house is very quiet around you. Outside, Nerima in December is settling into the early cold, the street below your window empty except for a cyclist moving through the orange glow of a street lamp, there and then gone. The next day at school, you sit with Hana at lunch. You are still group. The friendship, such as it is, continues. You continue within it. But something has shifted that is not visible as a change, only felt as a difference. You are no longer mirroring. You are simply present. The distinction is invisible from the outside and total from the inside. 3 small things happen over the course of the day. During second period, Yuki makes a joke and you don't laugh at the precise moment laughter is expected, and you laugh 30 seconds later when you actually find it funny, and the only consequence is that Yuki glances at you briefly and then moves on. During lunch, your accent surfaces on a word and you don't reach to correct it. After school in the hallway, you hold the door for someone behind you without checking first whether they are worth holding the door for. None of these are large. None of them cost you what you thought they would cost. You file this information carefully, the way you file everything, except this time what you're filing is evidence. You find Fernanda in the hallway by the gym. You sit beside her on the floor, your back's against the wall, and you give her the thing you have spent 6 months acquiring at considerable expense. 15 minutes of specific, honest information. The ribbon, left over right, not a loop, a fold. The bag, one shoulder, the right shoulder, the strap at mid-length. The word Nanka, and how to place it, and what it sounds like when it's working, and what it sounds like when it isn't. The lunch geometry. Hana's group is complete, but Nakamura Sota is a door that doesn't have a lock, and he is worth knowing on his own terms, not as an entry point to anything. The teacher who grades on precision and the teacher who grades on confidence. The shoe brand. The specific platform on the train home that gets you a seat. You tell her everything you know about the system, not so she can disappear into it. So she can see it clearly from the outside and choose what she wants to do with the information, which is the choice you were never given. She writes it in her notebook. You watch her fold the page and tuck it into her bag with the careful, two-handed gesture of someone storing something they plan to keep. And you recognize the gesture from 8 weeks ago, the way you used to tuck the photograph back into your planner, and you say nothing about it. 3 weeks pass. December arrives with its low gray light and the school's preparation for the end-of-term events. You are on the train home, the Seibu Ikebukuro line, the same line as the first morning, a Tuesday evening in the cold. The car is half full. The seat beside you is empty, and you haven't noticed it's empty, which is different from the first morning when the emptiness was all you felt. One afternoon, Hana sits beside you on the steps outside the main building during a break, which is not her usual place, and she says something you are not expecting. She says, "When you first came, I envied you." You look at her. She looks at the schoolyard. She says it more precisely. Not the foreignness. She says, "You came in knowing you were different. The rest of us have to pretend we're not." You think about your mother at 22 leaving a country because she finally fit in. You think about the photograph, your mother in this city, trying very hard. You think about the 6 months you spent taking yourself apart piece by piece and handing the pieces over in exchange for a seat at a table, and what remains after 6 months of that and what doesn't. Here is the irony that took 6 months to arrive at, the version of you that Hana is sitting beside on these steps right now, the one with the handwriting that doesn't match anyone else's, and the laugh that fires when it fires, and the accent that surfaces when it surfaces. That version only exists because the performance cracked. You became worth knowing at the exact moment you stopped trying to be. The girl who arrived on the platform in September and decided to disappear was the one who eventually forced her way back through. You get on the train. You pull out the planner. Page 47 is empty now. The photograph isn't there anymore. You moved it weeks ago, closer to the front, to a page you open daily so you can find it without looking. You hold it. Your mother, young in this city. The ribbon tied correctly. The smile borrowed. You now on a train moving through the winter dark of Nerima, the seat beside you empty and the windows black with the reflection of the car's interior, your own face visible in the glass like a question you're no longer afraid to let stay open. You put the photograph back in the planner, not page 47, somewhere you'll find easily. The train runs on. Somewhere right now, someone is learning a new language, and discovering it comes with a cost they weren't quoted. The price isn't fluency, it's the version of yourself that only speaks in your first tongue. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.